For me, living intentionally means to not just respond to what happens, but to be able to make that response in accordance with a vision that you want to live.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I am thrilled to be speaking with the introspective TJ Meagher. TJ, welcome.
Thanks. I'm excited to be on here and talk to you about some interesting stuff.
Yes, it will be interesting. That is a guarantee. TJ, will you kindly introduce yourself to folks?
Yeah, so I'm TJ Meagher. I've been a coach for almost 4 years now, and I guess I have a bit of an existential kind of streak in me where I really, really pay attention a lot to philosophical concepts of existentialism and how it affects people's lives in terms of anxiety, in terms of how they relate to other people and relate to themselves, and how it relates to self-esteem. So my coaching tends to be a little bit more deep than just goal setting and that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I really, really like to pay attention to. But how it manifests a lot is perfectionism, procrastination, self-criticism. This kind of stuff is where my clients usually meet me at. Besides that, I love movement. I dance. I do acro yoga. I go to the gym. I love nature.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those last little tidbits as well. For
Yeah.
those of you who already or don't yet follow TJ on social media, he includes some pretty groovy aspects of his life in there, so you get a pretty good picture about what he's about. It's pretty interesting, very entertaining, and often thought-provoking. Very often. Indeed. Plant that seed for folks. A little teaser. You can check the show notes for all of TJ's socials. TJ, I'd like to do a rapid fire intro to our conversation, wherein we'll go very briefly. We'll dip our toe in. You'll give us a tasty soundbite, perhaps, for each of these questions, knowing that we'll go back in more thoroughly to dig in beyond the surface. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, ready as I'll ever be.
Good. Here we go. TJ, what does it mean to live intentionally?
For me, living intentionally means to not just respond to what happens, but to be able to make that response in accordance with a vision that you want to live.
What is one change in habit that has had an exponential payoff?
I probably have to say self-analysis, through coaching, through therapy, through journaling, just because we so often deny things about ourselves that this can really, really hinder all of our intentions from coming to fruition because we're had this inner conflict with ourselves that we don't often realize. So I would say self-analysis.
What have you said no to that has made a significant impact in your life?
False security, just a life that is quote unquote practical and safe, and really, really leaning in and betting on myself and betting on my personality and betting on my passion.
What area in your life feels just about perfect?
None.
We can end there.
Yeah.
None. We're gonna end. Good. Who is someone you admire, and what do you admire about them?
Recently, there was a photo an old photo of my brother, and it's him making a silly face, and I wrote on the back of it, I'm going to give it to him. I wrote on the back something about the meditation called metta and practicing kind of loving kindness. And one of the things that I've been able to do is really connect with my brother and the purity in his heart. He's a very pure-hearted person, and to be able to respond to the snakes in people or the shit in life that can be really traumatizing, to be able to respond to that with an open heart is really heroic. And so I really look at him as a kind of heroic person because he's been through some things, but he still responds with openness.
What do you imagine some people admire about you?
Probably my like my zest, like my passion. I'm a very energetic and passionate person, and I think people probably admire my open heart, like my I guess my openness. Like I'm always willing to be like, I'm curious, I'm non-judgmental, I'm like really open to, someone else's perspective. And I think that genuine care and openness, I think people really do resonate with because I do tend to be able to go deep with people pretty often. So I think probably that.
TJ Meagher, thank you for sitting on the hot seat. You may now step down.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you very much for giving those some very thoughtful yet succinct responses. I'd like to dig in now. Is that okay with you?
Let's do it.
Okay. The meaning of living intentionally. You talked about the intersection between your response and a vision you have for the life you want. Tell me more about living intentionally.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to I don't want to say that it's this kind of um, uh, being closed off to what happens, because that then you're kind of mistaking. Like I think when you push a virtue to an extreme, it can become its opposite. It can become a vice when you push it too far. When you live in terms of universality, right? Um, so if we're only responding with everything in life has to fit into my vision, then you're pretty stubborn. If you're not willing to adapt and to change to how life responds to your response, then you're having a conversation with yourself. And I think that's not how reality works. Reality and what human life is it's a conversation. We're responding to other people and to life back and forth. You try something, you put in your effort, your willpower, that's your sentence, your side, and then life responds with the chaos, the unimaginable. Something happens, and then there's a constant conversation. I think that there's a balance there that needs to be there. That you can't just have a just intentional life that's only focused on your principles and values and goals, and everything has to fit into that. That's a little bit too strict. At the same time, you don't want to be so psychologically open that you lack intentionality, that you lack an intention or a vision. I think there's a balance there between being able to have the steer the rudder in different directions and let it kind of shift around a little bit, but still keep your eye on the intention and allow even the intention to adapt and change as you mature and grow.
I love it. So what I'm hearing is living intentionally um, in order to be most reasonable, most sustainable, has to have a lack of rigidity, right? It has to have a little breathability so that you can attend to the universe in its designs. It's not just about your vision for yourself because that might be a little too limited. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and it's not even that it's just limited. I mean, you said it really briefly, which is great, right? It's not even just that it's limited. It's just like it's not the whole picture. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't, like it's not reality. It's just not how life is.
Yes. So what does it look like for you, TJ, to live intentionally? When you are living intentionally, what are some of the ingredients there?
Um, a schedule and rituals that uh, that align with who I want to be. Like cold shower, journaling, um, you know, reading my coaching books and psychology books, um, not hanging out with people that don't thrill me. Um, I have actually a list of rules for myself, that you want to read? Should I read them to you?
I would love to hear them. Well, first of all, how many are there, right? Are we going beyond
There,
20?
no, there's 10
I would love to hear them if
right
you're
now.
willing to share. I'd be delighted.
All right, hold on 1 second. Let me grab
Love
them
it.
for you. They're up on my wall. These are not. This is not a complete list,
Yes.
but this is interesting. So let's get into it.
Love it.
So
Thank you for sharing.
yeah, it's just I have this on my wall posted with a little piece of paper.
Excellent.
Um, One is don't hang out with anybody that doesn't energize, inspire, or challenge you. Number two, knowing is not enough. You must apply. Three, identify your fears and desires and know that they are energy. So it's about transmutation.
Mhm.
Number four, have a specific plan. Number five, don't wait until you feel like it. You never will. So
Mm.
practice discipline. Number six, give your heart into everything you do. Otherwise, don't do it. Um, Number seven, if you know a thing is wrong, don't do it. And that seems simple, but it's not, right?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
about not justifying or rationalizing immoral behavior, which can get tricky sometimes. Um, Number eight, be honest. Number nine, get uncomfortable. And number 10, continually practice self-reflection. These are my rules.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those. Uh, may I ask some questions around them?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So how do you reconcile if something doesn't feel right, right? Don't do it. And the one where you said you're never going to totally feel ready. How do you, it feels like there's some gray area where it might feel unready. You might feel unprepared. Do you get where I'm going with this? Like there feels like there's going to be an area. It's like, is this because it feels wrong or because I'm not ready? How do you negotiate that feeling and what do you do with that?
Well, I this is theoretical because sometimes it gets really confusing, and sometimes
Sure.
we hide from ourselves. But I really try to define what's happening inside me. Is it an intuition that it's actually not the right path for me,
Hmm.
or am I just afraid of failure, rejection,
Yes.
whatever?
Yes.
So I'm kind of searching for my inner dialogue, or not my inner monologue. I'm kind
Hmm.
of searching for that. And okay, what sensations are behind that? Um, is it a nervous, quick kind of controlling attitude and feeling? Because that's probably a fear of rejection, failure, whatever. Or is it a kind of more intuitive, like, this is maybe this isn't the right path for me, and it's more of a quiet, intuitive feeling.
And thus comes your final rule of self-analysis, your self-reflection, right? Which is
Yeah.
which is great. That helps you discern. Okay. Can you identify an example, a recent example where you've run it through this filter, right? Is it this or is it that? And you've decided to just do it. Is it where
Mhm.
maybe it was uncertain at first? Can you think of an example recently where you took action on something?
Yeah. So I actually am going next Sunday in about 6 days. I'm going to Denmark. Um, I'm gonna be visiting a few clients and a few friends. Um, Denmark, Germany, uh, Netherlands, Spain, France. So a bunch of good places. And I was thinking to myself, okay, is this the right move right now? Should I be, double down on my business and I just bought a new apartment, a few months back. Okay, should I be, what should I be doing? Right. And going through that, um, I kind of like imagined what it would be like to be there, and I was like, it would be really cool. But then I was also saying to myself, I don't know if I have the money right now. I don't know if I is that a good use of my money? And then I was kind of realizing like, well, I mean, I could be dead in like 6 months. So like, if I really think about the end of my life, maybe when I'm 80, am I really going to be looking back and saying, oh man, I wish I didn't spend that $1,000 on that trip. I'm like, no, no, like I to meet people that I have never met before, but have really connected with deeply. To meet them, to go to a new place or a new country, that in the face of the the end, right? The whole thing in which your life measures up against, right?
Hmm.
Which is the inevitable end. In that perspective, typically things become clear. So I use death as really often as a tool
Hmm.
for clarifying what I should be doing.
Yeah, excellent. And that I feel like that ties into what you were sharing. What you say no to is that false security and leaning away from a life that is maybe practical, right?
Yes.
And yeah, death is it's a powerful image, right? Uh, it's a powerful filter, frankly. So I think it's fantastic because for you, it allows you to live the life that you would say that you wanted in the end, seemingly.
Yeah, yeah, because you know, like, death anxiety is something that every human being uh, subconsciously represses
Mm,
actively, right?
mm,
But when you harness that, it's like hacking your biology because then other fears are not as powerful as that fear. Then it's like, oh
yeah.
shit, wait, so this fear can be used to overpower that fear and make me go bungee jumping or make me go, go and talk to this, approach this girl, or make me go into
Mhm.
that career that I want to go into because I can use that fear of death as a motivator. Wow, okay, all right, that's pretty cool. So then we change our relationship to fear.
I like it. I like it. You give me lots of questions. I have to start writing these down because we're gonna have to make this a two-parter, perhaps. Um, Thank you again for sharing those rules because that's a lot of those are why I want to ask you many, many more questions in addition to the original ones that I asked you. Um, Relatedly, folks listening now don't know that we had this conversation before we hit record, but if only you were thinking of something to put it on your wall behind you in, in an artistic fashion, I think a 10 rules for my life would probably make sense in the background.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, right. That's really good. I like that.
You know, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No one knows what we're talking about, but that's okay. Okay. Self-analysis is one change in habit. It's one of your rules, even self-analysis, self-reflection. As long as I have known you since the very beginning of that time, you have struck me as someone who is open and thinking about, very intentional, dare I say, about the words you choose, about the thoughts you express, and seemingly about your actions as well. When did you not do this?
Well, kind of up until I was about 17, 18, I
Okay.
didn't do this. It, I When I was 18, two traumatic things happened to me. One is that I had a really, really deep existential crisis where like I was looking up at the stars and my friend was explaining to me that these smaller stars are actually just farther away. And it stopped making me look at the night sky as a kind of landscape. And it started making me look at the night sky as a kind of like falling into an abyss, like it's infinite. And it gave me a 3D perspective, like I was seeing depth in the sky, not just, big and small stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that sense of scale really disrupted who I was at the core of like what reality was. I was like, oh my God, I am this microscopic being. And that really dramatically shifted everything in my life. It was an axiomatic shift of I'm going this way in my life, and now I'm going that way. And it totally disrupted just, yeah, all of my narratives about religion, about philosophy, about, what was meaningful in life. And I went into this
Sure.
kind of desert of nihilism and going through that. That really started to make me become self-analytical almost out of necessity because I started to get anxiety. I started to see colors differently. I was more poetic. I was like more interested in life. It's like my head cracked open to life, and it was this really really dramatic thing for me. And
Yeah.
nothing changed externally, but internally I was really dramatically changed. And the second thing that changed in my life at that time was a betrayal in the family, which really, really opened me up to what is my perception about? Is my perception real? Can I trust my
Mm.
perception? And that skepticism that bred from that really became a foundation of my personality in terms of being skeptical and being a thinker.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. Who is this stargazing friend of yours that shook you to your core?
He's my best friend. His name is Mateo. And just a guy who moved over here from Colombia when he was 13, 14. A very strange guy. One time he stayed up for 5 days just to be able to see how it feels. And he said that
Mm.
it was the strongest hallucinogen he's ever, encountered.
Yeah.
Um, very strange person that you wouldn't think that he's full of wisdom. He's not overbearing about it. But if you get into conversation with him, he's very, very sharp guy. And yeah, it's like a hidden gem, you know. But when we talk, he's just able to pierce through to the core of what things are. And
Mm.
I really, really appreciate that about him. He's changed a lot about my perspective.
You already used your answer for who you admire, so you cannot admire him. Doesn't count.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you already said your brother. Sorry.
Okay.
That is cool. That he does sound like a very groovy dude. Can I ask you back to one of your rules? Because this is something that had triggered previously. Can I ask you back in about those? Thank you for sharing those again. That's great.
Mhm.
Um, your top rule, I believe, was don't hang out with people who suck. I'm paraphrasing, right?
Mhm.
What's the inverse of that? Who do you surround yourself with? Who do you actively seek out in order to live the way you want to live?
People that are taking action, um, like at this point in my life, it's really about um, it's really about action. So people that are taking action that is authentic and courageous, and they're standing for something, they're living for something, they're passionate about something. They're not letting life go by and just being like, oh, I'm working at this job and I'm doing this. And like, if you're not passionate and enthusiastic about the things that you're doing, don't blame life, blame yourself.
Hmm.
You're not courageous enough to call forth life's riches. Like I'm kind of paraphrasing from Rainer Maria Rilke, this German poet. Um, and yeah, I really do like to hang out with people that are passionate and that are creative, that are doing things that are authentic and real to them. That's the kind of people I like to hang out with.
That is groovy. So you, and I apologize for my second use of that word in less than 5 minutes. It sounds like these are the folks that you are attracted to. Are these the folks, dare I say, that you are going to see and visit in Europe? Are
Yeah,
they those
yeah,
people?
definitely. Yeah, those people fit in that category for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. How do you, so for things to be scheduled, I think that was another thing that, you want to have a plan, routines, rituals. It's going to sound like exactly the same question, maybe, but how do you choose to engage? Like, how do you seek these people out when you are looking to re-energize, when you're looking to move forward socially? What is your almost logistical process? Do you get up the, go to LinkedIn and do and search for specific terms? How do you seek these individuals out?
I guess it's a kind of guttural response. Like
Okay.
when I am because first of all, I have a good sense of community and I have a good sense of friends. I have a decent amount of friends. I have a good
Hmm.
sense of community. So if I'm not just going to my community and my friends, if it's not that, if I'm seeking new people, if that's the
Hmm.
question, um, then it's a matter of just like I'm seeing people on maybe on Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'm like, if something really, really resonates with me in terms of like that's real, like this person's actually putting their heart into it, and I could see that. I'll just shoot them a message, be like, hey, really love your stuff. Just want to say I appreciate this, this, and this about you. That's it. Have a good day. And then if they respond, then we just get into a conversation. But other times I'll just meet people at a party or a social setting or whatever, and I'm typically the kind of person that will engage people in deeper conversation.
Hmm.
And if I just resonate with someone, I'll be like, hey, we should hang out. Just send the invitation, just That's
Put
kind of
it
what I
out there.
do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the part that you're in control of, right? Of living intentionally, putting yourself out there. You can't guarantee what they're going to respond with, if they're going to respond, if they turn their back and walk away, or what have you, right? Yeah. Thank you for answering. Oh, go ahead.
I had to learn how to maneuver that because when I was 18 and I went through this big, emotional shift in me,
Yes.
I I didn't I guess I didn't really realize that not everyone wanted to talk about death
Well,
and
I bet you
philosophy.
quickly realized, yeah,
I did,
that
I
that was the
did.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But for a little while, I was just like, "What? Why are we wasting time talking about this stuff?" Like, But I did adjust and realize, like,
Right.
okay, right, people
Yeah.
are.
Don't you realize those small stars are farther away? Don't you want to talk about that?
Yes, yes.
No,
Uh,
I appreciate the reason, TJ, I'm asking that is because I know for a number of people, whether they're listening to this or not, have their routines and maybe going years and decades, right? They have their communities, they have their stuff in place, basically. And if they're hearing things like, and maybe they've heard previously that, it's about who you hang out with, you're the average of the five people you hang out with the most, or whatever the metaphor is, they're like, that's all well and good, but I live here and this is my situation and this is my day to day, and I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to. It's like, what might one do? And so you answering that, I think, gave some insights into what one might do if you don't already run into these types of people, right? And ideally, everyone has at least one person or a couple people in their lives that maybe light them up or get them excited or takes them to a better place to where they want to be living, right?
yeah.
Um, and maybe spending more time with those and less time with, like your number one rule says, less time with the people that drain you or keep you from being who you want to be. Um, so I think that's great.
Yeah, I think the short answer to that question is like um, practice resourcefulness, not victimhood.
Mhm.
That's the short answer.
Yeah, yeah. Victimhood in terms of, well, these are my circumstances, so it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. Tell me about why your life is so imperfect.
Because I'm honest with myself.
Is it the term perfect, right? When I said what area in your life feels just about perfect, and I stopped you after you said none. What, I do put the word perfect in quotes, right? Let me reframe it here because I have a general idea of where you're going with imperfect.
Yeah, yeah.
What area of your life do you feel most excited about because it is going the way you want it to be going?
Okay, got it, got it. Hmm, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, none of my none of the pieces of my life are going exactly the way I want it to. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, really none. I'm just constantly having this conversation where it's like I want certain things and I get a little version of that and I'm like responding to that. So like,
Yes.
yeah, none of them are really going exactly the way I want it to.
All right. I'm going to massage it further. I'm not going to give up on this one.
All right.
Which area of your life are you excited about?
Mm, Yeah. I love that you're sticking with it. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. An area that I'm excited about for sure, I would say is just my career. Like I'm very interested in like I love what I do and I love the conversations that I have and I love the clients that I have and I'm considering getting a PhD in coaching because now there's PhDs in coaching, and I'm also considering maybe a PhD in maybe in coaching and psychology, or maybe in philosophy and psychology. But I love learning, I love education, I love what I do, and the idea of getting closer towards mastery and seeing people that are really really good at what they do, that excites me. People that you know pe- people that are really able to cut through to the heart of things and be able to help people really quickly. That idea really excites me because it is it's about me living intentionally. It's what I really want to do with my life. If I'm here to serve, that's really it. This is what I'm here for, right? Like I want to be able to do this. So I'm really excited to become a better coach, and and to grow my business and to be able to just like really help people really deeply. I'm really excited for that.
That sounds just about perfect. Moving on. You had, I believe, you had shared in another context, another conversation with other stakeholders. You had shared this PhD in coaching, I believe, and it sounded like something up right up your alley. It sounded like it made a lot of sense. So I'm intrigued and delighted to be hearing more about this journey moving forward. Someone you admire, the first person you mentioned is your brother, right? And his openness. He was pure-hearted. Tell me more about, first of all, this image, this photo that you want to share with him, and then talk to me about how you view your brother as open-hearted.
Yeah, well, the photo of him, it's just like it's him like it's like in a dugout for baseball, and he's like making this really silly face as he walks by.
Go ahead for the viewers on
He's
YouTube.
like like this. He's like
Uh-huh.
making that kind of a face, and
Yeah.
it's hilarious because he always, even to this day, he still does that face,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely just it's so funny. Just he's just a comical, like wiry Jim Carrey kind of a character,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very animated. And the reason why I say that I see him as pure-hearted is because it's been so easy to be his brother.
Mm,
He's an older brother. I have two older brothers, and it's been so easy to be his younger brother. Like he's very open and receptive, like very easy to get along with. Doesn't like argue or fight about a lot of things, and it's not naivete. Like it's not like he like trusts people because he doesn't know that people can hurt him. It's
mm,
more like he's like wise as serpents, soft as doves, right? That's the Bible. That says that. Like, wise as serpents, soft as doves. Like you're wise in the sense that the serpent knows that other people have snakes within them, right? And knows that they can bite. But soft as a dove in the sense that you are still able to trust people. You're still able to, for the possibility of people living up to the better angels of their nature. No, you're able to trust out of courage, not out of uh, naivete, right? And I
mm,
think he does that. Like he's been fucked over a couple of times, in life, but he's
yeah.
responded. Not, he hasn't curled up in resentment and and defensiveness. Like he's just
Yeah.
not that kind of guy. Like he's open to listening to you. Even if you poke at his ego, he's like open to listen to you. And it's just really cool to see someone who continually opens his heart in response to life.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I encourage you to share this conversation with him. You can jump to this point in the conversation if he doesn't want to listen to you saying nice things about Mateo, but I think he'd be delighted to hear these things, that he had this impact. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to share this directly with him, whether it's
Yeah.
sharing this recording, but obviously telling him these things. I have a feeling
Yeah.
though, you're the type of guy that likely does share these things with him.
I do. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That makes sense. When I asked you at the top of the conversation, what do you think people might admire about you? You started off with a very powerful word, zest. It is your zest. And then as you were describing and going a little deeper, you got to almost a similar answer to what you admired about your brother, which was the openness. Talk to me about that, which I don't know is it's not entirely surprising because if it is something you admire, typically it's something you aspire to be.
yes.
But it sounds like you might have already attained this enlightenment. Talk to me about why this is your answer for what people might admire about you, your openness or your zest.
I think that's my answer because that's what people call out. People often call that out.
Mm,
And sometimes if I feel comfortable with someone and if I know that they're patient and that we have time, I will go off on, 5-minute philosophical rants and just like go deep into a concept and
yeah,
explain why that concept is interesting and
yeah,
why it's pertinent. Um, and people typically, I'll know when someone's like locked in with me,
Yeah.
and I'll know it.
Yeah.
And people often, when I know it and when I feel it, when they feel it, then typically at the end they're like, wow, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
interesting. I've never heard someone describe it like that. I never looked at consciousness from a biological perspective before, or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. Like whatever we're talking about, people do respond with that, like, wow, you should be a life coach. Like, wow, you should be like a professor or something,
Yeah.
and people will respond to that part of me strongly.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to what character traits people respond to in you, because we have to reality check, with what people respond to us, right? It doesn't mean that determines us,
Sure.
but it does. It lets us know what is being highlighted in their perspective, right? So that was always highlighted. Just my passion for these deeper topics, and genuineness of just being open to other people's perspective. Like that's always come up and part of the conversation. So
Yeah. So because you presented it as you did, I have to ask, when are people not locked in? Or what do you do then when you notice a couple moments, a couple comments in, they're like, oh, I lost them. But give us an example of when that might have happened. Not maybe it never happened. What happened? What do you
no.
do then?
No, I mean, well, that's a second question. The first question is, when does it happen, right? So I think it happens when it's unsolicited advice. Um, that's when it definitely happens, or like
Mm,
when I'm just responding from level one. Like in coactive coaching, in the book they talk about level 1, 2, and 3 listening, and when I'm responding like the garbage can of like recycling things and just kind of like taking it in, like, oh, this relates to me. When I'm
yeah.
just relating it to me, then people tend to not listen. I'm just like responding, oh yeah, that relates to me because of this, and it's like, okay, I'm not really catching them. I'm not really picking up on their feeling tone. I'm
Hmm.
not really reflecting something deep in them, because only when people really feel that you're knowing deeper inside of who they actually are, that's when they'll be receptive to you. But if you just skip over that, people subconsciously know it. Even if they don't consciously know it, they subconsciously know it. And then the
Sure.
defense comes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when does
So
this happen to you? When people are listening at that, or is it about you listening at that? I can an interaction where
mm,
you were starting to get into it, not because maybe you're a level one, but because they were not prepared to do some self-reflection, right? They were not ready to, they might have let something slip and not realize that, oh, this guy's genuinely curious and listening. To me, that might have been a throwaway comment. I was ready to talk about the weather, and then you're ready to talk about the depth of the stars, right?
so often.
Yeah, I bet. I bet, right? So how do you move forward from that moment? Because I'm sure you catch it.
Yeah. I do. And you know, I guess we should clarify the question. Like, is the question of like, how do I move through the resistance of them not wanting to, or like what is the question here?
Well, yeah, let's come up with a specific instance where this might have happened, since it happens so frequently. Kindly take us into the example in how it played out.
Oh, okay. So you want an example of how this worked out?
Mm,
Um, hmm. Oh man, I don't know if I can think of one right now. Let me take a second. I guess I'll give a little caricature because I can't think of a specific moment right now.
okay.
I'll give a
Hmm.
little caricature. Like sometimes I'll be like at a party, and we'll be kind of like making joking conversations,
Hmm.
and like it'll trigger something a little bit deeper
Hmm.
in me of like, I notice as they're saying that, the fact that they the fact that they listened to someone else's story and that they got at that out of that. Interesting that you pulled that out of that. That's an interesting connection you made in your head. So sometimes I'll just like call that and be like, huh, like what made you switch over to that topic from this? And sometimes I'll just like call that, or like, huh. I'll just like, it's interesting the way that you responded to that. And then like that will give him a chance to be like, why did I do that? Why did I just switch to this? Why did I catch that aspect of the story? Particularly, why is that aspect of the story meaningful to me? What about that resonate with me? And
Hmm.
it will invite them. And sometimes people will respond to that, be like, I don't know, it's interesting, and then move on,
And
right?
then move
Or
on. Yeah.
sometimes yeah, or sometimes they'll instead say, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess, and then they kind of like talk deeper about it, and then we'll just go in, you know.
Yeah,
But there's an example.
that's a good example. Thank you for sharing, because that's not exactly where I thought you would go, but it's great because it sounds like you're just calling it an observation, right? Calling it an observation
Yeah,
that you've made.
yeah. Sometimes I'll do something that is even a little bit further. Well, sometimes I'll be like, hmm, like it feels like we're all looking for words to say. Like if it ever gets quiet, you know, like I'll sometimes call that like, it feels like we're all searching for something to say next, right? I did that a few times if I'm really comfortable with someone.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's a good icebreaker, actually. It's a really good way of calling that out. Saying it's okay that we're silent here, but I'm gonna fill it a little bit with what's going on, with the play by play.
yeah, acknowledge what's happening in the feeling tone.
Totally, totally.
Mm.
TJ, what would you like to share additionally in the name of intentionality?
Hmm. I would say kind of what I talked about before with death. Like
Hmm.
if anybody if anybody listening to this, um, you know, uh, it feels a little bit stuck or feels just maybe they lack that zest for life, I would say do some meditation on death. You know, do some writing about um, how time is passing by, and do a brief history of yourself, of what
Hmm.
has happened to you and what you've done in your life, and do kind of a history of where you've got, how you've gotten to where you are, and what you want that rest of your time to be about, and just really start to integrate death into your life. Um, that's what I would say, because that for me was the biggest transformation for me. Is just when I started to really acknowledge the fact that I was going to die, because that, not just intellectually, but when that like really emotionally hit me, everything changed for me. So I think just doing that practice will really help you live intentionally.
Yeah, I like that exercise. How might you work with someone who's very naturally caught up in the limitation of money, the real resource, the
Mhm.
scarce, I don't want to even call it scarce, but the real resource of money and affordability and, that four-letter word of retirement, that people, you gotta, can't do things because you got this. You can't do things like obligation, fiscal responsibilities and obligations. How do you talk to someone and reconcile those two ideas, right? Because the death one is a very powerful one. And it's like, it's almost, it sounds like it's saying this idea of death, in the fleeting moments of life is more important than paying for it. How do you how do you help people reconcile that? Because without saying this doesn't actually matter, right?
Right.
Because some people just aren't going to swallow that pill.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for me, the way that I reconcile it is to be able to talk to people about how they think about money, how they relate to money.
Hmm.
A lot of people, they approach money from a scarcity mindset, and to be able to overvalue money, right? That it probably a lot of times comes from a place of fear and scarcity, and that's why I'll bring it to that place of death. But I'll typically relate to like, how did your parents treat money? What are your thoughts about money? How do you budget? I'll typically talk to them about just like how they feel about money. Do they feel that maybe money can buy them love? Do they feel like, maybe I've had clients that have felt that in the past. I have clients that have felt that, oh, someone else has something special that I don't. That's why they make more money than me, because I'm not special. So we have a
Mm.
bunch of beliefs around money that relate to our self-worth. And so I typically take them through that to be able to have them relate differently to money, because it is just like time, because time is related to death. Just like time, it is one of the most precious resources of life. And if we have a relationship with resources to life that is scarce, then we're going to take actions that are safe and that won't lead to maybe making more money. So I try to help them to relate to money with less fear, And to see that it's kind of two sides of the same coin, that it's not like, oh, you either choose a life of, existential freedom, or you're just doing everything, or you are a practical life of money. I feel like you just instead change your relationship to both resources of life, to be able to get rid of some of the fear around both of these things and start leaning in more to being a little bit more active and intentional about both of these. And it's not one or the other. It's a false dichotomy. And so I think you kind of have to be able to, just like in spirituality, it's not bypassing the physical realm. It's that the spiritual is imbued inside of the physical realm, and vice versa. It's the same thing. It's like in money, there is that an inherent limitation. There's a limitation, right? The ultimate limitation is death, right? But there's an inherent limitation in terms of you getting what you want, right? And so money can be a part of that path, right? Of like, okay, doing things that are meaningful before death that requires money, right?
Yes,
so it's a false, so it's a kind of a false dichotomy, and I don't really like to, pin them against each other.
Right. Well, that's what people do automatically. And so it sounds like you help people to shift that and to change their mental model, right? To pull the Mateo treatment on them, right? To change to rock the bedrock, so to speak. TJ, this has been delightful. How might people find you if they want to learn more, if they want to experience perhaps a conversation with you, if they want to help shift their perspectives and in order to get what they want? Where would they find you?
They can see a little bit more about what I'm about on Instagram. I have my handle is _ TJ Meagher, and you can just search me there. I'm typically there. If you want to be more direct and kind of see how I work with people, you can just go to my website. It's tjmeagher.com, and you can see my testimonials and all sort of good stuff. But if you want to see some of the concepts I talk about, Instagram is probably the place.
Yeah. I recommend going there at a minimum, and then you probably have a way of finding you from there as well, I imagine.
Yeah, just message on Instagram.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. I genuinely appreciate it. I knew it would be delightful, so I'm not really surprised, I'll be honest, but I am unsurprisingly delighted to have had this time. Thank you for giving it thought. Thank you for going deeper, and thank you for sharing a little bit of your 10 rules and beyond that. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being engaged. Thanks for kind of poking a little bit further when there was times to poke more, which is great. You're embodying the Joe that I know.
Excellent. Good. So I'm the same person. I always endeavor to be. TJ, I will speak with you soon. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Joe.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.